Wonderful. I think the webinar is started.
There we go. Okay, good morning all and welcome to our next session. I have had the pleasure of attending the event sponsored by this group of people from Birthing the New Humanity, and I am honored that they have agreed to join us here today. So let's meet our panel members. We have with us Julie Gerland, who is a co-founder and CEO of Birthing the New Humanity, BirthTheChange, and also a French NGO. She is a HypnoBirthing trainer and was awarded an honorary doctorate in holistic medicine for her lifelong pioneering work on the long-term effects of prenatal life and lobbying the United Nations to obtain the Nurturing Care Framework in 2018. And also with us is Francois Gerland, the co-founder of CFO of Birthing the Humanity and BirthTheChange. He co-trains HypnoBirthing Educators, is a retired commercial airline captain, a hypnotherapy trainer, international speaker, an expert in healing early trauma. Also is Amélie Patern, a founding director of Birthing the New Humanity. She is a hypnobirthing childbirth educator and currently co-trains other educators. She is a director of education for a French NGO and is actively launching the BTNH app with a global team of experts. And our last panelist is Day Suzanne. Day Suzanne has been a registered nurse midwife for 40 years. She is the founder of Soul Birth and founding director of Birthing the New Humanity. Day is a mother of 4 and grandmother of 3, and a passionate advocate for peaceful pregnancy and sacred birth. Enjoy the wonderful presentation they have prepared for us. Julie, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Gloria, for inviting us to this really prestigious panel and Day's event. We're really honored to be here with so many of you from all over the world, and especially in the universities in the US. I'm Julie Gerland, and as Gloria has already introduced me, I'd like to start with our presentation. And just to let you know that what we'll be doing is we will have each one of us 10 to 15 minutes of presentation. Then we'll come back again and do another round and let you know what we are doing now in the world to, as part of the solution to some of the problems that we see. And then we will open the floor for discussion and for questions. You can put your questions in the chat and we'll be able to read them off and answer your questions. Unfortunately, you won't be able to open your mic and actually share with us, but this is the next best thing. And hopefully we'll be able to answer any of your questions. So we're going to share our presentation, our PowerPoint. And so follow along with us. We hope that you'll enjoy this presentation and that it will be meaningful for you, as much for your heart as for your head, because that's really what Birthing the New Humanity is about. And this new paradigm for early parenting and birth practices is really above all moving from the head to the heart and to the body, because the heart has been very much left out in our society and is perhaps one of the greatest contributions to us being up in a world of chaos. And I'm sure you'll agree with me there. So, Francois, if we can have the next slide, that would be really wonderful. So Gloria has already done a fantastic job of introducing our panel. Myself, Faye, my husband, Francois, and Amélie have worked together for years and form a really fantastic dynamic team. Francois, myself, and Amélie are in France. We're coming from the south of France right now, and Faye is with us from Perth, Western Australia. So, as I said, we will each have a chance to share with you, and then you can ask us individually questions at the end. Next slide, Francois. So we'd like to start. Hang on just one second.
Go ahead, Julie.
So we'd like to start with just a couple of minutes of a trailer from the film, the documentary film called In Utero. And this gives a very good introduction to why we're doing what we're doing and the need for change, and a little bit of a new perspective on really the conscious baby. That the conscious baby before birth. So sit back and enjoy this as much as possible. Some of the images might be a little bit disturbing, but it is a very realistic capture of what's happening in the world. Is it possible to show that, Francois? There's a bar on the side. I'm not quite sure why. Can you change the bar?
Intrauterine life is not a paradise, as some people try to make us believe.
This substance, which is the potential of a human being, feels every little feeling that the mother feels.
We are the receiver of all the happiness and of all the difficulties of our parents.
This is something that we're just beginning to explore gene by gene.
We're really pushing back that time frame to say that there are factors environmentally that happen prenatally.
Human beings are affected by the environment as soon as they have an environment. And that means as soon as we're implanted in the womb.
In our society, there's so much rushing. You're so busy, everything going.
Fetuses of mothers who are high anxious, they're showing differences almost, we want to say, in temperament.
We see reduced brain volume, reduced gray matter density.
People are conceiving, carrying, and birthing children under increasingly stressed conditions. Stress that affected one generation will be played out very exactly in the next generation.
People have been through wars, famine, disasters of all sorts.
When we see dysfunction in people, we're actually seeing the imprint of that early experience.
An adult trauma is really a fetal trauma.
And this has been the missing piece, the foundation for our whole life.
When you come to a point of knowing what is the cause of all this, when you have an answer, like the door opens.
So it all starts from conception. We could even say from before conception. And just to tell you a little bit about my story, I started off life in Hong Kong many years ago. And up until the age of 16, I was very confused. Life was okay, but there was no real meaning, and I didn't understand why I would cry. And until the age of 16, I had an experience which just completely changed me. And this experience led me to really know in my being that we can live together on this planet as one happy global family, that we can thrive, that we can blossom, that we can be well, that we can be happy, that we can reach our full potential. Yes, it's possible. And yes, that's what we're meant to be living. And I got that, thank goodness, at the age of 16. However, my adventures took me all around the world to try to find, well, if that's what we have to do here, how are we going to do it? And it was a few years before I discovered how we're going to do it. I looked into science and education and all sorts of different means of helping human beings. And it wasn't until I was 22 years old that I came across a Bulgarian philosopher. And he said this in his teachings. He said, if we were to look after pregnant women in just 50 years, that's 2 generations, we could close all our prisons and all our hospitals. And when I heard that, I started to cry. And I said, wow, that is what we have to do. Not just patch up and create more prisons and more hospitals and more looking after sick people, but dry up the source of the problem. This is where the answer lies. And so I had to start finding out what was the science, what did we know about life before birth, And in those days, we're talking about now over 40 years ago, in those days, there was not much Western science on this subject. However, it started to appear with the groundbreaking book, The Secret Life of the Unborn Child, in 1982. And I bought this book, and Dr. Thomas Verney, a Canadian, began to tell us that the baby in the womb is conscious and is being affected by what the mother is living. So this was a huge leap in our understanding of ourselves and of the world. This is the foundation. So I started this long story of asking people, what did you live when you were pregnant? How has your child turned out? Try to discover what was the connection. And I started working with the top pioneers in this field of pre and perinatal psychology and health, as all this science was coming hot off the press. And so what do we know today? We decided that not only should we help parents, which is what we did, we should train professionals, we started to do that. But then we said, we're coming against a wall because the paradigm needs to shift. And what we need to do is to get to the top. So we had a way of getting into represent a non-governmental organization accredited at the United Nations. And off we went with our documents, scientific documents, to be able to show the United Nations why and how they needed to change. And so we worked for many years. You can see us at the United Nations in New York, in Geneva. We went all around the world, to Melbourne, Australia, to global health conferences. And we just kept bringing up this information, giving out our documents, talking at any occasion we could, in the corridors, in the toilets, to ambassadors, at meetings, anything to get this information out. And we then obviously started speaking around the world until in 2018, this groundbreaking document came out with, I have to say, many almost word for word copies of what we had been handing them. So this is the Nurturing Care Framework for Early Childhood Development. And it's a framework for helping children survive and thrive. And in the world of the United Nations, having had practiced it for quite a number of years before this document, this is one of the first places where the word thrive actually appears in their documents. So to survive and thrive, to transform health and human potential. So for those of us who are aware, this is a huge paradigm shift already, because up until then, we were always talking about maternal and infant health, and if they were alive, everything was okay. Today, we know that with mental health, with our emotions, we have to feel well. And feel well means we have to embrace our emotional world. And in that, we can develop to our human potential and thrive. So I'd just like to quote 3 extracts, which I find very, very important to help us understand this paradigm shift. So this is from the document we've just seen. During pregnancy and the first 3 years after birth, we lay down the critical elements of our health, well-being, and productivity, which will last throughout childhood, adolescence, and adulthood. So what does that mean? Is that health later on in life is now traceable to what happens in utero. Every child's health and well-being becomes the health and well-being of the community, society, the nation, and the planet. It's important to create an interdisciplinary and holistic approach to this prenatal and perinatal psychology, provide early education to youth, couples, and parents as well as offer significant support to couples. So this is where I'm left thinking, well, okay, interdisciplinary. How many universities offer interdisciplinary studies and with a holistic approach? Perhaps this is something we need to look at. The United Nations around this time started talking about academics, politicians, thought leaders working in silos, that each one of the groups of people were only staying within their framework. If they were psychologists, they weren't talking to the health professions, etc. So we're being called upon now to work together, to come out of our silos, to connect together, and to have a more holistic view of what is the human being. And then empower future parents, talk to them. What does that mean, future parents? That means young people, youth, people like perhaps yourselves who will have a child. This should be taught in schools and universities. And so we have embarked on, I don't know what's happened to the slides, Francois. Is there a technical problem?
No problem at all. It's just that the next one is Faye. So I just wanted you to conclude.
Thank you so much. So basically, this has led us to doing what we're doing today. Is we now have this document. The G20 has had it on its agenda several times to let people know all over the world that this is absolutely critical for human beings. And if we are to have human beings who are happy and well and create a planet that's thriving, then this is the most important subject on the agenda. So I'd like to now pass the baton on to my colleague and dear friend, Faye, who's in Australia, Western Australia, to share with you something about the realities of what goes on in hospitals and birthing centers and about birth itself. Faye?
Thank you so much, Julie, for that. And I would just like to reinforce everything that Julie was saying about the Nurturing Care document and how important that really is to right across all systems like maternity care, healthcare systems, and every level of our living. Because I've been working as a nurse and a midwife for more than 40 years and working across all areas of maternity care. And what I've noticed is that very much we need to have this holistic approach to birth and parenting as well, because what I've noticed is that pregnant and birthing women have become more and more disempowered and more disconnected from themselves and from the birthing process as time is going on. The meaning of normal birth has changed. It used to be, giving birth more naturally. Now normal birth is actually instrumental and interventionist birth. Birthing environments have become a lot more medicalised, so far less natural state, and the outcomes have not improved despite all this technology. So if we can have the next slide, please, Francois.
Yes.
Unfortunately, yes. Unfortunately, the current maternity system, sorry, we'll just wait for the slide. The current maternity systems around the world are actually failing women and the babies and families. 1/3 of all women, unfortunately, are now experiencing some form of birth trauma. And we are actually creating a society based on fear and trauma, beginning right from birth and even before that in the womb. And I will elaborate more on each of these points shortly. But firstly, what I wanted to do is take you on a little journey. So if we can have the next slide, Francois. So I'm not sure how many of you watching are familiar with current birth practices. If you've already given birth, you may be familiar with all the different environments that we can give birth in. Otherwise, most people, before they give birth, their only impression of birth is what they've seen on TV or in movies. And generally what you'll find is this is a typical picture of what is a birthing space. And when I trained in a hospital system, this is what you see. So I just wanted to take you on a journey to see this picture for what it is. So really look at this picture and have a look. What do you see? So when I look at this, I see a woman on the bed on her back, which is one of the most unnatural positions to give birth in, because if you look at the human pelvis and the design of a woman for birthing, she should be in an upright position or leaning forward. So she's in a very unnatural position, which is unable to open up fully to the birthing process. She's actually, might notice some straps on her abdomen. That's because she's being monitored, or the baby is being monitored. So she may have an epidural in, which I would say for pain relief, because she's got an intravenous fluids going in. As you can see, the pole to the side of the bed there, she's got IV fluids hanging up there. So she's monitored on the bed, so she can't move around and be in a nice active state. There's actually if you see to the far left, there's actually a trolley there. That's a Neonatal Recess Cot. So all this equipment that comes into the birthing space. One of the first things I noticed is the bright lights, very brightly lit room. There's a trolley there with all the equipment and the birthing kit on there with the bowls and all the utensils that we use, the forceps and the scissors, everything that's required at a birth. And then notice the people around. The partner is at her head there, but they're very disconnected there at the moment. There's no eye-to-eye contact. There's no intimacy. And then the birthing attendants are all gloved and gowned and waiting at the end of the bed. The woman's probably got her legs in stirrups, you just can't quite see, but they're at the end of the bed waiting for the delivery, which I hate this terminology, but this is how the terminology is in the hospital. So they're waiting to catch the baby or to use forceps or use an instrumental delivery. Now, this is what you will most often see in a hospital setting. So just have a thought in your mind about how you conceive a child. Usually it's dim lit rooms, more intimacy and connection between the couple, and love is usually involved in getting the baby in there. So generally we say that how the baby gets in there is how the baby should come out. And so just taking in this environment, does this seem to you to be really warm and comfortable and inviting to give birth in? I don't think so myself. And having worked in this environment, it's not a very welcoming environment either. It's usually very noisy, very loud, very bright, and the couple are usually very disconnected from each other and from the process. It's a very medicalised event. So quite often in this case, it seems to me from what I can sum up from this picture is that she's probably been induced because she was probably overdue, supposedly, or she's needed more pain relief and ended up with an epidural. And we quite end up with what's called a cascade of intervention, where you end up with one intervention, then another, because one leads into the next. So this is a typical birthing scene in a hospital. So just take that in and just hold that in your mind for a little while, and then we can stop sharing for a moment. Thanks, Francois. So I wanted to just share that with you so that you can see what we normally view birth as. And so when I first finished my training, I trained in a hospital which had this kind of birthing happening all the time. It was a high-risk hospital, so very sick babies, very high-risk pregnancies. And just after finishing my training, I was lucky enough to go and live in the highlands of Papua New Guinea for 2 years. And so I lived and worked up there on a volunteer basis and saw completely the opposite. And so women would walk for days to come in from the village to give birth, and they would usually just give birth out on the lawn. Very rarely did they come into the labour room. And when they did, it was just squatting in the corner to have their baby. It was very unmedicalised, very natural, very normal. In fact, one woman even just left at lunchtime to go somewhere, didn't know where she went. She came back half an hour later holding a baby. So she'd walked up from work, went to the hospital, had her baby, and then came back to work, breastfeeding her baby. So this really planted the seed in my mind about what birth can actually be. It can actually be natural and normal. And so it was a complete mind shift for me, from going from high risk pregnancy and birth to now very natural in the organic state, how it should be. And so, but I really wondered about, you know, different things, because the other thing up in Papua New Guinea is that there was a high mortality rate in babies from simple things like prematurity. Like if a baby was born early, they didn't have the resources to keep the baby alive. If they got very sick or ill, that they couldn't stay alive. So there is a place for technology and intervention when it's needed, but when it's not needed, then we should be leaving it well alone. So there's pros and cons for intervention and for medical emergencies. Obviously, if a pregnancy is going along normally and naturally, we shouldn't be interfering with it. So as a midwife who's worked in the system as well for a very long time, I was lucky enough to work in a birthing centre environment for 20 years, which I really loved because it was very empowering to the women and the couples that were coming to birth there. And they had choices. They could birth in the water, they could birth in whatever position they wanted. It was very low key and all very normal. And then when I worked back in the hospital busy labour ward, it was back to being high risk and very, very stressful environment. So what I've witnessed is that women in this birthing environment have an adrenaline response. It's very much based on fear, because all of society ingrains fear into our mind. So when you watch a birth on TV or films, it's very dramatic because drama sells, right? So we're getting all this drama, this action, you know, what I showed you in the picture. This is a typical, you know, in the movies, you'll see the woman on her back like that screaming as she's giving birth. No, that's not how birth should be. It is not how birth should be. You know, women should not be going through that kind of trauma while they're giving birth. Birth should be actually very woman-centred and very calm, relaxing, getting into all your endorphins and your oxytocins, all those beautiful, juicy, loving, relaxing hormones that help you to birth your baby. It shouldn't be about action and drama. It should be really calming. And so this has been my passion ever since working in Papua New Guinea and then coming back and working in a birth centre, giving birth to my own 4 children in a very empowering way, having beautiful water births and lotus births and just beautiful connected spiritual births. That's what I wanted to share with other people. And so I've made it my life's work to actually help educate and empower women and couples to actually birth beautifully in whatever environment they choose. So this is how birth should be. Thanks, Francois. This is a woman birthing at home, you know, labouring or, you know, going through the birthing process and just catching myself on that. We need to change our language around birth, because when we use words like labour, that applies or implies that we're working hard. And it is if you're in the fight-flight response with an adrenaline kick. Whereas if we allow ourselves to be rested and relaxed and really in tune with the birth process, it can be actually pain-free, because how we interpret pain is completely individual. It's a sensation that allows us to know that we're about to birth a baby. But if we actually work with that sensation and don't interpret it as pain, then we don't have the fear switching on and we don't have the adrenaline kicking in. Instead, we switch on the oxytocin, which is the love hormone, which is what we need to birth our baby. And we switch on all those endorphins, which are those hormones that make you feel good. You know, the really beautiful ones that you know, just want to get more of, get on a natural high, because that's our body's natural pain relief hormone. So if we can activate those, we can have this kind of a birth. And so I've had beautiful births like this, and they were just amazing. They were just so different to the births I was witnessing in the hospital system. So to me, the hospital systems are really letting women down. We should be aiming to support women to give birth in the most natural way possible, support them in their choices. And if whatever birth they choose, we need to support them and educate them and help them through that. And it's all about giving women choices, because most often the systems now are all about prescribing to women how we will support you to birth in our system, what pain relief measures we can offer you. They're all medicalised forms of pain relief. They're not offering all the natural forms of pain relief that we can offer, which is why we offer these classes and education around what women can do to empower themselves and inspire themselves to birth in a beautiful, peaceful way. And also women, because they're handing over their power to another authority, to the doctor knows best or this other person knows best. It's about coming back to centre and actually reminding women that they actually know how to birth. We just have to remember and to be reminded of how to connect with our baby and with our body and to allow that process to unfold. And giving women all the choices, real choices about what they can use, what positions they can get into. It's not about the birth attendant and what's most important for them. It's actually about the woman and her birth journey and how we can support them. And also the sacredness of birth has gone, because giving birth is one of the most sacred, amazing moments of our life, very life transforming. So why are we robbing women of that moment in couples? Because it's when the woman becomes a mother, when the couple become parents, and when this soul incarnates into planet Earth, into a human form. And we've all taken that journey. We've all come from spirit to physicality. And this is through the portal of birth. It's actually a very sacred journey into planet Earth, into humankind. And so it needs to be honoured in that way. But so much of the systems are robbing couples of those experiences. And because of all the stress hormones, the adrenaline and the trauma that's happening, more and more babies are being born preterm, sick, small, needing resuscitation, needing high care in intensive care units. The women are now getting more traumatised, because did you know that now 1/3 of all women are suffering from postnatal depression, or getting some form of birth trauma, which leads to postnatal depression. So rates of postnatal depression are on the increase, along with post-traumatic stress disorder. And also because of this, it has a long-term impact on relationships. And so there's a lot of relationship breakdowns. Thanks, Francois. So, there's so much ongoing effect when we interfere with birth. And when we're looking at the birthing systems around the world, there is so much intervention and disempowerment of women and of couples, taking their power away. And also from a perspective as a midwife working in that system, there is so much birth trauma being carried by the birth professionals. I only know this because I finally left the system, and it's taken me, 6 months now, but I've actually been healing my own birth trauma for the last 2 years. And it's deep trauma that I didn't even know I was carrying, that I wondered, I didn't feel right. And it's not until I started actually writing a book about birth trauma that I started uncovering my own birth trauma. Now, I haven't had any traumatic births myself, but then I realised as I was unpacking all of this that actually I'm carrying birth trauma from all of those births that I've witnessed in the hospital system, all those really difficult, disempowering births that I've had to stand by, even though I tried to keep them normal. Trying to work in a system that doesn't support women and couples is really soul destroying. So we really need to help heal the birth trauma from all the birth people, all the birth support people that are turning up to support women in birth. We need to actually unpack all our own birth trauma if we're to turn up and be of service to women fully. Because how can we, if we're carrying our own baggage into the birthing space, we need to leave the birthing space clear of all this trauma, clear the energies, and bring positivity and love into that environment so that the baby can come into a loving environment, surrounded by people who love the baby, so that they feel welcomed and wanted in this life. There is so much that needs to be done to fix and heal this system. And I know there are amazing films. The In Utero film was amazing. And the Birth Time film, which I know is being shown later in this conference, is a must watch because it addresses all these issues. And there's real solutions out there. We just need to implement them. We need to heal the birth workers. We need to support the up and coming birth workers, such as student midwives and doctors that are in the environment, because they're just getting pummeled at the moment. It's traumatic and stressful working in those environments. Short-staffed, they don't have enough support from senior staff. There's a lot of workplace bullying. None of it is conducive to supporting women. We're in a loving, nurturing environment, or a calling. Being a midwife is a calling, and we need to actually be nurtured ourselves in order to nurture others. So I'll leave it there. I'm going to hand it over to Francois, because he's going to help take you on the journey through trauma, and then we'll come back and we'll be talking throughout about how we can solve these problems. But it's in our hands, and as young people coming through to have babies, you really need to know that you do have choice, and it's up to you to actually vote with your feet as to where you give birth, who you choose as your caregivers, and to do the work around healing any previous trauma and bringing babies in love. Conceive consciously and lovingly, bring these souls in feeling wanted and loved right from the beginning, so that you can plant the seeds of love and peace right from the beginning, preconception, and then all through pregnancy, and then birth in love into a sacred space and parent in love. So that's all I have to say for now, but I will say more later. But thank you. I'll hand you over to Francois. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Faye. Now you got the joy of an Australian accent, isn't it nice? And now you get another one from the other side of the Atlantic. So I hope you can cope. I'll do my best so that you can understand me. Yes, I live in France. My name is Francois, and I used to be an airline pilot for a long, long time. But also at the same time, I had a long life of studying the subconscious mind, which was my other passion. And led me to meet a wonderful woman, because we were sharing so many activities together. Julie, who is here today. And also when you study the subconscious mind, you end up somehow by doing something we call hypnosis, or call it as you want, but this is how to access the subconscious mind is in a relaxed state. And this is doing this on myself and on clients. I discovered so many things that I'm using now every day. So let's go back to this presentation. Here we are. That's it. And so yes, it's me there in the corner. And with the same thing we told you and Julie summarized already. So we are going to talk about trauma. My intention is not to traumatize you, and in the other side is just to let you know that trauma is not something that you do have to carry all your life. It can change. So here we go, just a little film to start. It's called The Wisdom of Trauma.
In the US, the richest society in history, fully half of the citizens have a chronic disorder such as high blood pressure or diabetes. Anxiety amongst young people is growing rapidly. Asthma and autoimmune diseases are on the rise, as are addictions. Depression is rising. Youth suicide is rising. All is not well.
I started heroin at 26. That's what really destroyed me. It just takes the pain away.
It's easy to want to escape reality completely instead of coping with it.
And so the question is, can we be human beings in the midst of civilization? Because what we call civilization demands the denial of human needs.
Please welcome Dr. Gabor Mate.
Every human being has a true, genuine, authentic self. And the trauma is that disconnection from it, and the healing is the reconnection with it. Why do we get disconnected? Because it's too painful to be ourselves.
So you sort of a bit like in The Matrix, when Neo sees everything's made out of numbers. You look at people and you see all their trauma and damage.
That's what I see. So trauma is not the bad things that happen to you, but what happens inside you as a result of what happens to you. What do you want to tell me? What comes up right now?
Shame.
Thank you.
My father, he would spank us and take a belt to us.
Who did you speak to about your pain?
Nobody.
Yeah, that's the trauma. In other words, by the time you're 5 years old, you're completely alone. People are much more lonely and isolated than they used to be. Literally, it causes inflammation in the body and suppresses the immune system. You've been diagnosed with prostate cancer.
Correct.
In my view, people that develop cancer have a hard time expressing healthy anger.
Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump, there were two traumatized people fighting to govern a traumatized world.
That's exactly what I'm saying. And these are the people that our society rewards with power. Our schools are full of kids with learning difficulties, mental health issues that are trauma-based, but the average teacher never gets a single lecture on trauma. We need trauma-informed medical care, trauma-informed education. If we had a trauma-informed society, we'd have a society that looks much more compassionate.
You did. You made a difference in my life.
Thank you for being in touch.
I don't feel like I'm a bad person anymore. Hey, how are you?
Yeah, I just want people to see the truth. Solutions arise out of people when they confront themselves with the truth, when they're not afraid of the truth.
I think the biggest thing that this whole healing journey has taught me is how to be human.
Isn't it amazing? I mean, the work of this man, Gabor Mate, on his own healing, plus the one he gave to so many people now, is absolutely fantastic. So I would like to just start with what I would call the basis of all this work and what now proves even scientifically all its the reason to be for this work. Something has really changed even in the scientific world. It was known by many other people, but science, for some reason, since especially the 17th century, decided that the emotional side of the human being was too complicated. We are just not going to deal with that. And that led to the science we know today. But now has arrived the discovery of epigenetics, which has opened a new dimension in the knowledge of human behavior. We now know for sure that events are not the main source of our trauma. So what's happened to you is not the main source of your trauma. What it is your subjective perception. It is the source of your trauma. This is why you have people who have lived enormous events, I mean, things that would just let us completely like dead on the ground. And these people are perfectly functional. And I have met in my practice people who've just lived events which would just make you laugh and who have been traumatized for life. Because it is subjective perspective. This is what you feel. As Gabor Mate said, it's written at the top of the page, trauma is not what happens to you, it's what happens inside you, how you feel, how you perceive the event. The human being is conscious and feels emotions at very early stages of development. Some people say it's from the moment of conception. And it is absolutely true that there are babies, I mean, children who have just talked about what happened when they were conceived. It's quite amazing, but it's a reality, it's been proven. Trauma is the lasting emotional response that often results from living through a distressing event. So you live through a very distressing event at no matter which age. Yes, so that can be in utero, that can be at birth, that can be early infancy and later. You don't know what to do with this event. It's just too big, it's just too strong. You're just overwhelmed with emotions. This is how trauma is created. The good news is trauma can be addressed by working directly on this emotional response. So the best way I just could talk to you about this and share it with you is to tell you one of the many stories of my clients. I have the permission to say that. My client is not the young girl you see on this photo, it's someone else. She comes to us. She was actually one of our students. She was training to hypnotherapy. And she was somebody who would unconsciously do everything she could to hide herself. Like, for example, on this young lady, even though she's not very happy, you can see her forehead. Impossible to see her forehead. She'd bought glasses. Her glasses were just hiding her eyes in the most terrible way. They were not nice glasses. Even her clothing was as neutral as possible. And the way she stood was just like completely like bent over, not very healthy at all for a young woman like this. Because actually she was a pretty young woman. So we found out that she felt that there was something in her. She said, she described it, there is a monster in me. Something really wants to destroy me. Something doesn't want me to succeed. I mean, her life was failing in every possible domain. Not talk about even sentimental life or romantic life, nothing of that working properly. The work, she was going work after work after work, being underpaid, being fired, going herself by her own choice because she was not happy, and so on. So we decided to use this beautiful science of hypnotherapy and say, well, what's this monster? What does this monster want? You say you have a monster. Let's see who it is and what's happening in there. So in a relaxed state, she went back and back and back. We went further and further and further till she found herself consciously in her mother belly. And her mother at that time was obviously pregnant, but didn't feel like being pregnant at all. It's not that she didn't love her husband or anything like that. It's simply that they didn't have the money, they didn't have the conditions. She wanted to do other things. She absolutely didn't want to be pregnant, and she resented completely this state of pregnancy. As a result, this child inside her felt completely rejected, not wanted, being in the wrong place. I shouldn't be here. And not only that, the only person who is the most important for me now, my mother, is not happy because I'm here. Well, you may find it difficult to believe, but that's exactly what happened. This child in utero decided that she had to die. She decided that the only way she would help her mother was to die. And it became her agenda. It became what she was thinking about. Nevertheless, her body was just very healthy and was growing and growing and growing. And her desire to die became stronger and stronger and stronger. When she was born, the desire didn't stop. The decision didn't stop, except she had no idea what was going on. She was not suicidal anymore because it was a subconscious thing inside her which wanted her to die. It was not just her who said, I just have to kill myself. It was not conscious anymore. You understand the difference? It was subconscious. Then she was self-sabotaging everything in her life. And thus the result I just told you about a professional life, about a romantic life. Everything was just going wrong. So what did we do? When something like that happens, you have to address, first thing, the emotion which was lived at that moment. So we asked this adult person to go back and talk to this little child. Say to this little child what's really, really happening. And of course, what did we do is that in her beautiful imagination, we called her mother as well. And her mother, by then, her circumstances had completely changed. She had money. She was proud of her daughter. She was so happy she had this daughter. She was in no way wanting her daughter to die. So they just emotionally took this little child and said to the child, we love you. We want you to live. You are going to be the most wonderful little daughter, and then you will become a fantastic adult. There is so much you can give to the world. Your life is so important, and we want you to be well. Emotional reaction of your past child, believe it or not, is still within you. In other words, this young woman felt inside the child just starting to breathe symbolically, started to have a reason to live, a reason to exist, surrounded with love, surrounded with well-beings, with abundance, with all the best intention in the world. As a result, after this session, this woman was completely transformed, completely transformed. She was another person. She changed her hairstyle. She started to stand up straight. The way she would look at you was just like somebody who has a reason to be here, you know, very assertive and present, and trusting herself. Found a great job very soon after that. And I do not remember what she told us about her romantic life. I've forgotten that. So a complete transformation. All that to say that somebody who was in for total depression and probably cancer on later life was just completely healed in a session which must have lasted 40 minutes. I cannot guarantee that this will happen to every single trauma in 40 minutes. No, it doesn't. But I can tell you that whenever you go and address the emotion, it is the emotion which is the cause of the trauma. It's not, once again, it's not what happened. It's not because her mother rejected it that she was traumatized. It's because what it did to her. It's because she had this feeling inside, I am not wanted, I have to die. And then that is what provoked the trauma. So beautiful story. I have hundreds like that, except I do not have the time to tell them all to you. But I have to tell you, when you start to embark in this incredible work, you will be absolutely fascinated for a long, long time. So let me turn the page now and pass the floor to our wonderful friends, Amélie. And Amélie, as you know, is a founding director of Birthing the New Humanity. She's a director of education for the French NGO, because we also have a French NGO. And she is a hypnobirthing child birth educator, talking about natural birth. She knows a lot about that. She's obviously, she is a best-selling co-author in the Womb to Thrive anthology. Amélie, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Francois, for this nice presentation and for sharing your story, which are really, really important. So I'm delighted to be here with you. And today I would like to talk about what parents need to know. Maybe, Francois, you can just share the next slide, please.
Yes, I'm going to do this right now.
Thank you. But before going to what parents need to know, I would like to start by sharing how couples feel and where they're at when I meet them in my hypnobirthing class. And you might be thinking of having a baby yourself, and maybe you will recognize yourself in what I'm going to share with you today. So, of course, when I meet them, they share their story. They share lots of things about their pregnancy. But what's there, and what I've really noticed, is they really don't know what to expect. It's either they only have what we can see on movies, or they had a previous traumatic experience. So they really feel under stress or disempowered, but not at all ready or prepared to give birth and to be a parent. So, of course, they are full of fears, full of beliefs around pregnancy, birth, and parenting. And this will lead to lots of complication and trauma. So I really think that we need really to talk to these parents, but before we need to teach those things at school, because of course we're not prepared for this really transformative journey. And we go to school to pass so many diplomas, so many degrees, but we have no education on how to become parents. So I think this should really be taught at school before we even think of becoming a parent. So today I would like to share with you some insights on this natural birth and something about fear and stress, because as Faye shared with us today, this environment should be with oxytocin and endorphins, but most of the time it's fear and stress. And what happened to the body? The body just contracts instead of expand, and so which will lead the mother to really fight against what's going on in her body, you know, and she's trying to give birth, but at the same time she's fighting against the physiological mechanism because of this fear and stress. And of course, the information that you should maybe be aware of is that if you contract and if you're under stress and fear, this will lead to pain. But the thing is that birth is not meant to be painful. But I don't have time to go into too much details today, but that's really important. And the good news is this hormone, I mean the oxytocin and the endorphins, which are here to facilitate the birthing process, it's easy to learn how to secrete those hormones. And in hypnobirthing, we teach how to secrete them very easily with some very simple and natural techniques. And this leads to a natural birth. So it is possible to have a gently calm and peaceful birth. But of course, we need some help in that. We need to educate, we need to give information and also to practice, because that's very important to be prepared on different levels. I mean, it's on the physical, mental, emotional, and even spiritual level. But natural birth is really possible if we understand the mechanism. And also, what's important is the body's perfect design. Yes, your body is intelligent. Yes, your body knows exactly what to do and is really prepared to give birth naturally and comfortably. As I said, it's not meant to be painful. It's just because we don't know and we're not prepared enough. So, and that's one of the myths around birth. But when you understand the process and you don't fight against this natural process, I mean, you can have the most beautiful experience. But of course, the environment should, you know, go along with all of the things I'm explaining right now. That means we should leave the couple in a loving and caring environment. They should take their time. They should feel supported. They should feel safe, listened to. And this is also very important for them to trust, especially the mother, to trust her intuition, to really validate what she's feeling in her body and really just go with what the body is doing and just be really tuned with herself. So with that, this will lead to a complete different experience. If the mother and her partner are feeling really empowered and connected with their baby, they could have really the most beautiful experience. And talking about the birth partner, I would like to share something on that as well. I had personally a very beautiful birth experience, but my partner wasn't really there. I mean, he was physically there, but he wasn't really supported me. He didn't know really what to do. He was a bit afraid. He didn't know how to help. And I think we really need to teach the partner how to support the mother. This is really important. And not only during the birthing process, but of course, before conceiving as well. So I usually said, I wish I knew more. Could it have been better? Yes, of course. And I wish we had gone through like this HypnoBirthing class that I have the joy now and the privilege to share with parents and professionals. But yeah, with all this information, this can lead to a better experience for parents and the baby. Also about the bonding, which will last over the years and will make a difference for everyone. So what I would like to finish with is that we really need to support the couple and the baby. And this should come from the family also, the whole community, the professionals, and I think Faye talked about it earlier. So this is really important to teach birth professionals also, and the whole society, because I think this is really the most important things in this society, because this baby will be, I mean, the future citizen of our planet. So this is really important. And so being conscious and ready to become a parent could also prevent so much suffering. So, and we can try to give the best possible to every child so they could really reach their full potential and thrive. So this is my greatest wish, that every human being can be born through a conscious conception, really feeling wanted and loved. Thank you. That's it for now. Thank you so much, Francois. I will pass on now to Julie, I think.
Fantastic. Thank you, Emily. And we'll go straight into, you can take a deep breath, and from crisis to possibility.
Tapping the news today, you motives in a run of less than 4 hours.
Promising to continue market launch.
The essence that really stands out in this moment and needs to be shared with others.
Denmark went bankrupt in 1813. Why is this story so important for now? Well, when I first heard it, it had all of the elements of what we're experiencing today. It had systemic breakdown, it had people in fear, it had things needing to change because they weren't working, but nobody could see exactly how. It had all the elements that spoke to me of the current crisis we're in Greece and Spain and other places. And I thought to myself, a story with these potent elements, which actually leads to a fundamental innovation and possibility, has something to say to us today.
We sat down and tried to distill and organize the conditions for a paradigm shift, and I think first learning from that is this is a super complex thing.
Also in the time of crisis, you feel like you want to maybe be a part of something bigger, you want to disappear, become a part of a movement we were talking about as well.
They didn't just have conversations around how can we build an educational system. They built it. They didn't just talk about how could we do a cooperative there. That was, they did it.
Everybody knows something needs to happen. It's a point of realization.
We don't have to be afraid of the crisis. It's an opportunity for us to rise up and become, each of us, a little bit more conscious every day. And the more conscious we become, the more easy it is to accept the other and not judge the other.
A lot of these things would not have happened if somebody hadn't kind of put the action behind all these conversations. It's something we need to remember as a community as well, that we harvest and we speak together and we get into deep conversations, but without the action to support whatever we come up with. Nothing is gonna happen.
The past is there to teach us. It's the old idea of the karma. The karma is there to live through it so that we can learn from it. The next time we go around, then we do something better. Our forefathers went through this. It's their karma that they left for us to learn from it and to do better.
So never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. We are at a time of crisis, and we're pregnant with possibility.
And here is an African proverb that it's really important for us to follow, which says, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That's what we're doing with Birthing the New Humanity.
So recently, Birthing the New Humanity has published this anthology, and we are absolutely delighted that Gloria Bobby has endorsed the back of the book, and she says, wow, what a fabulous game-changing book. Thank you, Gloria. 26 global experts have come together to share their stories, their intimate stories of pain, of change, and of hope for the future. We really encourage you to download this book. From the Kindle version is less than $1. So it's really worth it, compiled by myself, and it's already a #1 bestseller on Amazon. I think that the next is a little... Francois?
Yes, so here I am again to present the BTNH Birthing the New Humanity new app, which is already available. Now, if you have your phone next to you and you want to download it either on Android or on Apple in an iPhone, you just have to use your camera of the phone, and automatically you will take into the app, which is absolutely free. So not a problem. You can just download it, have a look. You don't like it, you just get rid of it. But I do hope that you will really like it. So it's our baby. It's not, as I said, officially launched yet. It will be launched hopefully in June, but there is already plenty of content in there, and all of the content which is available now is free. One recommendation I have for you, if you do download this app, please go to the menu that you can see there. I don't know if you see my arrow here. On the top left, there is a menu, and there it says register login. So please register, because that will open for you most of the content, which if you just don't do that, you will be very, very limited to just a brief introduction to the app. What the purpose of this app is, actually, it's going to be our hub. It's going to be the center of this wonderful community, which is Birthing the New Humanity. Now, we already have a fairly large number of experts who are working with us on a daily basis. They want to share what they have to give. Most of them are the people who have just taken their practice a step further into a much more human way of practicing, that it is medicine, that it is psychology, that it is all sorts of science. They are these people who are ready and willing to share. So they will share their knowledge, they will share their science, they are very generous with it, they will give access to so that you can contact them if necessary. So I am going to give you a very quick tour of this app, so that you have an idea, as it is quite expansive. There's a lot of stuff in there. So I am going to change my sharing. That's it. Going back here and sharing my phone. So you come here, and here we go. Voila. You should be able to see my phone very soon. Here it is. Okay, now look at this beautiful little app. It's called BTNH, but if you go in your app store or if you go into Google Play, it is not called like that. You have to do a search on Birthing the New Humanity, exactly like that, and with a big T, a big B, a big T, a big N, and a big H, and you will get to the app. So now let me open the app, and you arrive at this welcome page. Now, this is the welcome page for people who are already registered. As I said, it is by clicking on the menu that you can see here that you will end up into this vast big menu here. And this is where you will see, under what you see my name, where it's written member content. If you are not registered, it will say register login. And so you will click on that, follow the instruction, get registered, and you will end up in this home page. When you are there, you will receive the what's happening next. I mean, the most important news. It's just something which is renewed practically on a daily basis. So obviously today we are announcing the reproductive justice, this conference where you are in now, and you have the possibility to register if you click at the bottom here. That will take you automatically to the website where Gloria's just put all the information about that. When you are in the app, the best thing to do is to go to all this main menu, which is here. You have small menus at the bottom of the page here. So here is to go to the home page. Here is just a featured video. And all this is just for the people who are not registered yet. But even if you're registered, you still have access to that. So these just a few things. As I said, they are just people to, just functionalities to bring people to go further into the app and register. So here you have access to all the member content, which is here. So everything, there is articles, videos, journal, etc. But they are not in this section, they are just come together. So you click on videos, you will see all the videos which are in the app. And believe me, there's quite a few. The best way is to go into topics. And topics is all the different, well, topics that are presented in the app. And if you click on one of them, you will have what they call subtopics. So which are the videos which are linked with birth, which are the articles, and it could be people, it could be all sorts of subtopics. So you just choose your topics and you have all the information you want on what is available. There is also what we call the directories, and directories is quite important. This is where you will meet, of course, the authors of the anthology book we just saw now, all the founding members of Birthing the New Humanity, the board members who are actually the people who are like leading the movement, partners, professionals. If you need professionals, they will be in there. And if you are a professional, and if you go for the professional membership that we offer, you will be listed in there. And there will be, at the moment is only 2, just because we are just filling that up. If you go to, for example, Amélie, who happens to be here, you will have access to her profile. And then, of course, LinkedIn, Facebook, email if you want to write to her, Twitter account, YouTube, Instagram, everything. So it's very, very convenient for professionals to be listed in these directories. Another very important element is the one which is here. Then you can see the event calendar. And the event calendar is where we announce what's happening. Like, for example, today we have announced this beautiful conference you are participating in, and here how to register. Now, all these events, that they are BTNH event or that they are event we are in sympathy with, which is the case of the one here, are just going to be in this event calendar. Now, there are times where there are much, much, much more events. On May 14th, we have this global summit, which will be on the subject of Womb to Thrive. So, going back to the main menu, you can go directly to the virtual events. If you want to go to our Soul Food Cafe, we will talk about that in a few minutes. It will be in there. You will click. It all explains how to enroll, and you will enroll into your event, and you can go back anytime in the page of the event. And then galleries for photo, tips and posts, courses. Yes, we will have very soon. We will have courses. There is no course at the moment open on the app. As I said, we are still filling it up. Journal entries, including yours, by the way, and information about us. So that is a very brief, short presentation of this app. But just to let you know that the potential of this app is absolutely huge. We have the possibility to have an enormous amount of precious content and contact and activities and videos and you name it. So that is for our little app. I think it's okay, Julia. I think we don't need to go any further than that. So I'm going to stop the sharing here. and go back to the other sharing. So just back to this. If you have your phone next to you and you feel like getting that, you just use your camera and it will recognize the QR code and you are in. Okay, fantastic. So let me go to the next slide. Oh, sorry, I was not sharing.
Yeah.
No, I was not sharing. I'm sorry about that. Let me share. That's what I was showing to you, is this QR code. So I'll leave you 10 seconds. So if you want to just use the QR code, it's a good time to do it now. And that's it. You'll have it in your phone. It has got to be an Android or an Apple, an iPhone. So it's just most of them. Okay, fantastic. Let's keep on. So Julie, you want to present our, oh yeah, that's Faye.
Yes, I will just share with you that if you become part of our wonderful community, which I don't know why you wouldn't want to be, because we have so much fun and we're connected with so many amazing people. We just love getting together and, you know, catching up at all the different events. So we're creating more and more events, which will be available as they come together. But at the moment, there's several things going, and I've been hosting a soul food cafe once a month. It's on the last Monday of every month. So the next one will be on Monday, May 30th. So you can scan in once you've got your app and come and join us for free. And we talk about all beautiful things. Each month I have a different topic. So last month just gone, I was talking about speaking the truth. We just talk about something for a little while and then we have a discussion around it, and then you get to hang out at tables with different people. So it's a virtual cafe. So you get to go into a breakout room and have a cuppa with somebody and get to meet new friends and chat about either the topic of the day or just chat about things in general. And it's a great way to meet people. And I think that's how we first met Gloria, which was lovely. She came along and had a great time, and we had an awesome time meeting Gloria. So I really want to invite you all to attend that, because I love meeting new people and bringing people together and to share content and stories. So please come and join us at that. It's free. You just need to have the app to register through there for free. And we also have talking circles going on different times. So we had a beautiful series run by Newton, talking about childbirth education, which was amazing and very popular. All of these are recorded, so you can access them on the app once they're finished. We also have a whole lot of support groups lined up for the future as well. So they're all coming and they will be announced on the app as they become available. And I'm also looking at hosting a midwifery sort of support group as well for midwives and student midwives, which I'm looking forward to doing as well. So anything that we feel is needed by the community, we're creating these events so that you can come and get really good value and join the community and really be a community. So yeah, we're really excited about this part of our app.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Faye. I'd like to add something. Why we called this event the Soul Food Cafe? It's a little bit like in a cafe. So Faye usually will give like a short presentation. It's just like to start the ball rolling, and obviously she has a lot of experience to share and a lot of matter to think about. Then there would be a little time for question and answer. And then what we will do is that we do exactly like in a cafe, like everybody has at their tables and they have a conversation. So we will use the breakout rooms, and all the participants will be shared in different rooms, and they will be able for half an hour to have basically the conversation they want. It can be on the topic that Faye started, or they can talk about whatever they want. I mean, that is the freedom of being in a cafe and sharing what you want to share. Sorry about that. Oh, that's making noise. Sorry about that. And at the end, basically, when people have finished, they can go back home and come back for the next Soul Food Cafe 1 month later. That's it.
So just a little word.
Yes, Julie.
Sorry. So just a little word about our upcoming global summit. So you've seen the book that we brought out, the anthology. We are bringing together not only some of the co-authors, most of the co-authors, but also others to bring you their wisdom, their experiences, so that we can network. So we have a variety of different types of presentation. Some are talking circles, some are movies. We have 3 or 4 movies to show. We have a presentation, then we have discussion, we have networking, we have breakouts, as Francois said, in our live events. What's really important is that you can get to meet other people from all over the world to share, to connect, to share experiences, to make friends, and whether it's professional, whether it's personal, to become really a global village, helping each other. So the theme for this summit is called Thriving is Your Birthright. It's time to claim it now, and how right that is. This is an absolutely free summit. So it'll run for about 14 days, and there will be over the weekends 3 presentations on Saturdays and Sundays, and 1 presentation during the week. And you'll have 48 hours to watch each presentation if you can't make it when we're actually live. So we hope you'll join us. If you get the app, you'll have all the information there, so you can register and come along and join us. So just to sum up, Confucius said, if your plan is for 1 year, plant rice. If your plan is for 10 years, plant trees. If your plan is for 100 years, educate children. Next slide, please, Francois. And Birthing the New Humanity is saying, and if your plan is for 1,000 years, conceive, gestate, and birth babies consciously in love. That's what we're doing here in Birthing the New Humanity, from helping youth, young people be prepared, learn, new parents, all the way up to thought leader categories of people coming together to share. Why? Because birth, we're all linked through birth. We've all been born, it's affected all of us, and we need to become conscious together of how our birth has affected us, how we can change things, and how we can now give the best possible start with the evidence and science that we have, so that we can really birth the new humanity, one that is safe, loved, connected, intelligent, creative, and can live in harmony with others because they have a great capacity for love and empathy, and are connected with the web of life, which is intelligent and loving, that links us all to our natural world, our Mother Earth. So we invite you to join us. This is the end of our presentation, and we'd like to open up for any kind of discussion. If you have a question for any of us in particular, or you would like to ask a question, I think at the bottom of your Zoom, there's the Q&A button that you can write in your questions, and Francois will probably read out the questions. And if it's for someone specifically, please be specific, and we'll share. So if there's anybody there who Gloria has told us that there will be many people in a big room with one screen for many. So you might all not be at a computer where you can actually write down your questions or share your questions. And so if no questions are coming, then we'll continue to talk, because there really is so much to say. We've given you a very, very thumbnail sketch on what is really this topic and what needs to change so that we can go from this current crisis. We cannot continue to have more and more unhealthy and traumatized human beings. I'm sure you're absolutely on the same page with that. So what is it that we have to do to go from this crisis, from fear to love, so that we have this empathy, we can hear each other, we can support each other, we can make loving, intelligent decisions together for the highest good of everyone and for future generations. I know this is possible, but not if we traumatize babies, not if we traumatize mothers. So that's the task. And every human being on this planet has a reason to be fully involved, because otherwise, we all know it, there won't be any humanity. That's clear. That's the level of crisis that we're in our global village. So that's why we really ask you to come and join us, because whether you're going to be a future parent, whether you can support somebody you know who's pregnant, whether you can be in a position as a doctor or a psychologist or whatever your profession is or will be, you can pass this information. You can be an ambassador of this information so that it becomes general knowledge and mothers get empowered. We haven't said much about that. So I'd like to say perhaps a little bit more about this. Basically, what the mother's living during pregnancy has a direct effect on her child. Francois shared a story. We all have amazing amounts of stories to illustrate the fact that if the mother is in fear and stress, she passes this on to her child during pregnancy. And the baby, by the time the baby is born, he or she is hardwired in their nervous system to be either ready to protect and fight. And if they can't do those two things, they freeze because they are on a reactive, a sympathetic nervous system has been created because they feel they live in a hostile environment. They're hardwired. So their future behavior is already written out. So this is not just the mother having, a little moment of stress. This is deep continued stress during conception, pregnancy, and birth. And let's say a mother is supported, she's empowered, she's informed, she knows about this. What can she do? She can acknowledge her conscious baby. She can live and send love. I love you, I love you, I love you. Life here on earth is fantastic. You're going to be, so happy in our family because you're loved and safe and we'll be there for you and we've got your back. And what happens is the baby then, with all this oxytocin, because that's what it produces, this feeling of love and safety and connection, the baby actually then has a far higher chance of fully developing and activating the neocortex so that the baby's not hardwired to function with the hindbrain, but with the thinking brain. The brain becomes more developed and the energies available in the child, because they're not closed down, are open. This child is one that you will see in a school who goes towards everybody and is happy to meet them, and they become more intelligent, they're empathetic, and they are connected with their intuition. that innate intelligence which guides them inside. We all have this. But if we're in fear or stress, this is closed down. We don't have access to it anymore. So these are the new children that we can bring into the world. And it depends on the mother. And so this is not to shovel more responsibility onto the mother. It's to say the whole of society needs to support future mothers. So she doesn't feel alone. She feels supported. She's informed. She can make her choices. And she gets from that particular time to live in the best possible condition, happy, healthy. We would advocate for no tax for pregnant mothers, especially under a certain level. They should be able to afford to live the best they possibly can, to buy healthy food, because they are building the next citizen. And we want our citizens to be beings who are full of love and consideration, because they're going to be our next door neighbors. So our children feel safe on the streets, so that we know we can rely on people and trust people. This is the village, the global village that we are absolutely determined to create. We have to create it. So yes, we really have to empower couples. We have to empower parents to be responsible, so they're informed, they know what to do, and we can birth this new humanity. So I don't know, perhaps there's no questions coming in. If anybody has any questions, there's something in the chat. I'm not sure whether that's a question. Francois, are there any questions coming in from?
It's a comment from Dale. At the moment, we must have been really explicit and clear, because there is absolutely no questions or comments, but obviously they are still welcome. If you have anything to say or would like to share or ask, we are absolutely delighted to answer any question, obviously.
We'd love to hear from you.
I would just like to add too, sorry, if I can, after what Julie just said, how just from what I've witnessed as well in babies when they're born, it really shows if a baby has been loved and nurtured in utero or not when they're born. Because generally if a baby has been neglected or exposed to violence and aggression while they're in the womb, you know, from domestic violence and all various other things, but the baby tends to be growth retarded, born prematurely, there's no connection with the mother when they're born, you know, it's very, very much disconnected and crying a lot, very distressed babies. They're very much living in an adrenaline mode. It's very, very noticeable compared to a baby that's been grown and nurtured in the womb, loving couple, beautiful birth, and the bonding is just instant and beautiful, and the babies are normally beautiful, healthy babies, good birth weight, pink, healthy, connected, loving, know they're loved, and they're a lot more settled. So it really does make a difference, you know, how babies are treated in the womb as well as the birth that they experience as well. So I just want to reiterate what Julie was saying.
Thanks, Faye. Yes, that's absolutely true, and so very important.
It seems as well, and I'm sure, Faye, you must have seen that in your practice, that the babies whose parents, especially the father, has been indifferent during the pregnancy, often they don't even recognize their father. It's just like when others, if the father has been loving and caring and supportive and talking lovingly to the mother or even to the baby will recognize the voice of his father just from a long distance. The father comes in the room, says 3 words, and they have done experiments on that. And the baby turns his eyes because he has heard the voice of his father. So isn't it beautiful? And of course, the eye contact. It seems as well that there are babies that were born in the most natural, loving way who don't even cry. They don't even cry. They just,
I noticed the difference from a baby that's born into a very noisy environment that's like hyperstimulation like I was showing in the picture of a busy like typical birthing scene in a hospital, babies born into that environment quite often do cry at birth, because it's probably a natural response when you come out into a cold, bright environment surrounded by strangers, compared to the births that I witnessed in the birthing centre and my own births, when babies are born into the water and then just brought up really gently, and just look at instant connection. And because the temperature's nice and warm and it's a loving environment, there's no noise, there's no overstimulation of the senses. And these babies, sometimes they even take a while to take a breath, but that's because they're still getting all their blood supply and oxygen from the umbilical cord. We're not in a hurry to cut it. We should leave that cord. This is something really important I want to tell people. Do not cut that cord. Let the baby get all of its own natural blood from the cord, because otherwise you're robbing that baby of all its own stem cells and blood and oxygen. The baby stops its own supply coming when it's actually transitioned into physical life. If you clamp and cut it before it's ready, then you're going to increase its chance of needing resuscitation. When I've had babies that are born that might have needed resuscitation, I've actually resuscitated them by just milking the cord, and then they've taken a breath, they've pinked up, and they've been instantly, okay. So leave the cord intact. When we leave these babies undisturbed in a beautiful, quiet environment, they quite often don't cry at birth. They usually just make just the eye contact, and they might just go like that for a little gasp, and then that's it. But way more peaceful and calming from what I've witnessed. Beautiful to watch.
Absolutely.
And what's the beauty of it? Because virtually everything we are talking is about this wonderful emotion, or call it as you want, that we call love. Mm-hmm. That's what makes all the difference. It's just absolutely. It's not chemical. It's not the powder. It's not the injection. It's just love, and the result is better health, better mental health as well. Physical body is just express much more happiness. They usually have this part of the brain which is more developed, because babies who are born in insecurity will have a very strong hindbrain, because they are here to survive. All these things are just in one very simple thing. Do you love this child? Do you love each other? And all the rest will follow. Can you imagine, in the world where we are living now, it is the most simple, obvious thing, and yet it's a complete revolution.
Absolutely. I'd just like to bring up the subject that always comes up for all of us. What about mothers or fathers who already have children, and they have lived through stressful pregnancies, either because some major event has happened in their life, or they just haven't been well, they've been going through a difficult patch. So we know life happens. None of us live perfectly, happily, all the time. That's for sure. Can we do something? Yes. We can do something to heal ourselves. Francois addressed that. But we can also do something to heal the separations with our children. So let's say, for example, the baby's been separated at birth, which can also cause trauma and disconnection between the mother and the baby, or perhaps just through depression or not feeling well. The number one reason for mortality during pregnancy is suicide. So there's a lot of depressed mothers out there who are pregnant. So what if she doesn't kill herself and the baby does live? The feelings inside, can she do anything to change this experience with her child? Yes, she can. One of the first things is just to become conscious. And this is the same we all know with a relationship that we've had where things have been difficult. Can we patch things up? Yes. If you're really sincere in your heart, the first thing to do is to say, I didn't realize. I didn't realize I did the best that I could at the time. And we always do the best we can at the time with what we've got. And we can do better tomorrow. We can do better next time. So self-forgiveness, understanding and empathy for oneself, and then being able to say either directly, even to a baby, I'm sorry, because I really am sorry. I'm sorry we got separated. I'm sorry I didn't know that you were there and that you didn't get the best possible start. I would have given you the best possible start if I could at that time. I love you. I want us to be together. What happens if somebody that we've had a rift with comes to us and tells us that? Well, the thing's forgotten. We're in each other's arms. And yes, we can still say, well, that hurt me when that happened, but we can listen to each other. And a parent can listen to their child. If a child is going through a difficult time, whether it's the tantrums of a 2-year-old, or whether it's an 18-year-old, or whether it's a 38-year-old, parents can listen to their child and say, I want to hear about your life. I want to hear about how you feel. It hasn't always been easy for us. I know that, but it can change now. I do love you. I do care about you. And I do want you in my life. And when we hear that, we melt. And yes, there might be a lot of hurts, a lot of water under the bridge, but it's possible to just dissolve one by one these things with the right intention so that we can come back together. And that's what we're all looking for. This connection with our close ones, where we feel wanted, where we feel supported, where we feel cared for, and where we can give our love. And so this is something that every parent should know. And it's really up to the parents. Some people I've heard them say, oh, well, my child did naughty things and they didn't come and apologize to me. And well, I'm sorry, but it really is the parent to come to the child. There's always a reason. If a child, I'll tell you this one little story. Somebody came to me many years ago and said that she had a child. She split with her husband during the pregnancy. And she said, it's not because we have separated that this child, this daughter, shouldn't see her father. And so however often it was, the mother would have to force her daughter to go and see the father. And the child, the daughter, would be screaming, I don't want to go, I don't want to go, I don't want to go. And she said, Julie, she said, I'm so tired of this. It's every single time. And so she said, you're in this field. Is there anything you can do for me? And for my daughter, who's obviously suffering. And so I just said to her, she was very surprised, tell me about your pregnancy. And she was like saying, well, what's that got to do with, with my daughter? She's born now. So I said, well, just tell me, how did it go? And so she said, well, it was okay. And so I said, well, obviously for me, it was not that okay. Otherwise, she wouldn't have that outcome. It doesn't just appear out of nowhere. That's what I've learned, is there's always a cause for what's happening now. So go back and find the cause, find the stress. And so little by little, I got her to tell me about what she lived during the pregnancy. And so she said, well, I didn't see my husband much because every night he would go to the bar with his mates. And so I said, so you were just left at home? She said, yes. And then she started a little tear. And so I said, well, then what happened? So she said, well, he would come home late at night, drunk. Okay. And then she gulped and said, and then he would beat me up. And so I said, leaning into her, and you're surprised that your daughter doesn't want to see that man? She looked at me, she said, I never thought of that. So I said, your daughter, even though she was in your belly, she was there present. And that man, even if he's the father, he is a danger to her life. He's a danger to her mother's life. And she was just so taken aback. So it was like, so she's not doing this just to be annoying. I said, no, this is written inside her. And so she just heaved a sigh of relief that she understood that there was a real reason for this, there was a cause for this. And then she said, I'm never going to force her again. So if I had stayed with her and worked further, we could have worked on that piece as well. But I just want to really, really show you that babies are conscious, and this memory is imprinted into our cells. And if you come to our summit, starting next week, the end of next week, Dr. Thomas Verney, the psychiatrist who wrote the book, The Secret Life of the Unborn Child, he's going to be talking about his new book called The Embodied Mind, how our mind is actually embodied into our cells, that they're not two separate things. And so it's going to be a very, very interesting presentation. And I really encourage you to come, not just for that one, but because our cells record memory. So it's not a memory in the head, but it's a cellular memory. And this hasn't really fully been recognized and taken into consideration in our faculties, in our understanding of the development of the human being. So it's really important because each one of us has our own stories. I think there's still no other question. I have just one other little story, and that's my own. For as long as I can remember, anytime somebody would ask me, come on, Julie, you're late for school, get out of bed, come along, and want to pull me a little bit stressfully or very stressfully out of my safe space, my bedroom or my house. And whether it's my husband saying, come on, you're late, our friends are waiting, this kind of thing, I would just go into a total panic, like nobody's going to force me to come. And it was when I was doing this work on myself that I realized that it was my birth trauma, that I was actually induced, my mother's labor was induced, and I was made to come when I wasn't ready to come. And it's the baby that gives the signal to the mother when the baby's ready to come. And if we mess with this, we're setting up for life some reaction that that child, that human being will have, unless they change it for the rest of their life. It could have caused me my relationship with my husband, because it's quite often that we leave the house and continually being told, you've got to come now, quick, and things like that was stimulating a very deep and painful wound. And he said, but why can't you do it? And I just couldn't until I'd healed that wound. So it really, really is important for all of us. Somebody said there was a hand up, I saw. Somebody has a question?
There is a lovely message from Alexandra. And she said, I just love all of this. So happy this is being talked about. We are very, very sorry that we cannot just open the floor so that everybody can talk, but it's a technical thing with this type of, it's not a normal Zoom meeting. So we are very sorry we cannot see you and hear you, but we appreciate you being here very much. Thank you very much, all of you.
But you can come to our live events where we can chat and get to know each other.
I hope so.
That's why we're doing that. So are there any other questions? Perhaps some of the other panelists would like to share some more.
I just wanted
We're not
to
quite
invite
sure what interests you. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say and maybe invite the person who raised her hand just maybe to put something in the chat or in the question and answer box. so that we can share.
And also, while we're waiting for that, I'll just add another story like Julie's, but mine's in reverse, because when I found out my birth story from my mother, that was back when the midwives had to hold the baby's head back until the doctor arrived to be at the birth. And I remember, as a midwife practicing in some private hospitals over east, that was their rule, that, you know, they had to be at the birth. So if the baby was coming too quickly, we were told we had to hold the baby's head until they got there. And I refused to take part in that because it is absolutely against every grain in my body. And then I found out why I'm so adamant about it is, well, apart from the fact that it's so wrong, but also because when I was being born, that was what happened. The midwife kept on trying to hold my head back before the doctor got there. But apparently I was so determined, I pushed through anyway. And Mum was determined too, because she's like me, she's very independent, and said, there's no way. She pushed me out. But like, that's been with me all through my life, and I can't stand it now when people try to hold me back from doing something. So it's really interesting. It does play out in your life.
Actually, there's a beautiful film called What Babies Want. And in there is the story of a man who has suffered rejection complex all his life. He always felt rejected everywhere he was. And when he was being born, of course his parents told him, they were in the car driving like crazy at the hospital, because, you know, in this culture, if you are not born in the hospital, you're going to die, which is really, really like, this has got to change. So they were in the car, and the baby was being born. He was just being born in the car. So the father was just so completely panicked, because they started to see the head of the baby, that he tied up the mother's legs, you know, like completely squashed against each other, and pushed the baby back and just drove like crazy to the hospital. And as a result, this child felt rejected, not only at that moment, but all his life. People don't want me. I'm not wanted.
No wonder. Poor things. Yeah, it's terrible, isn't it? Whereas if he just allowed her to birth in the car, everything would have been nice, normal and straightforward. So
just no problem. Absolutely, absolutely. Well, you know what? It's not. I don't think it's based on nastiness. It's just based on ignorance. That's all. You know,
fear as well.
Yeah, these people were thought they were doing well, but now we know better, and now we cannot accept this to last. Because this is, I mean, this is prehistoric. I mean, it's just like completely barbaric to see things like that. Nature has just planned things so beautifully. And that, this being said, this is nothing against doctor or midwives or whoever. They are doing the best job they can, and very, very often they do save children who are in danger and mothers. So that is not the question. But when a birth has all the potential to happen in the most natural, loving way, let it happen like that, please.
Exactly. And there's normally a reason why the baby comes before they arrive, because they probably didn't want to be born in that other place they were going to. And the majority of births that happen en route to hospital are usually fine anyway, as long as you keep the baby warm, you know, skin to skin, keep them warm and just allow everything else to unfold. You know, it's all usually fine. Just keep the baby warm. So for those of you out there, don't panic about births that happen before you arrive where you're going. It's usually okay. Just keep the baby warm.
Yes. And, you know, and that is really the beauty of what we know now. Even if it's something which has happened to your children, to yourself, this can always be healed. I mean, there is no final trauma that you will have to the rest of your life. You can always go back to the feeling that you or your child experienced at that moment, and just redo whatever loving, hugging, action, caring which could have happened at that time. And as Julie said, forgiveness comes immediately or very fast anyway. And things can heal in a miraculous way in 10 minutes sometimes. Things which have made someone suffer for 50 years can disappear like that in minutes. And it's so beautiful when that happens, but it's also a sign that it's never too late to be loved. It's never too late to love. It's never too late to compensate for what has happened. We haven't sacrificed our children. We didn't know any better, but now we can heal, we can fix that. And then for the next children, well, let's do what we have learned, and all the better. We won't have to heal anything. Yes.
Exactly. And Alexandra just shared, my daughter was a long labour, 40 hours, and she waited to come until the midwife I connected best with arrived. She also takes her time with her life and keeps teaching me to wait for good things. Yes, our babies are our best teachers. And I've seen that happen so many times where babies wait for the right person to be there. It's just like the other end of life, you know, because I've witnessed so many people passing over at the end of life, and so many times they wait for the right people to either be there or to leave before they choose to pass on. It's pretty amazing. So each end of life is very similar, just a mirror reflection. Such similarities. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing, Alexandra. And I think that's our time up as well.
It is definitely
perfect timing and a perfect thing to end with.
Now.
Yes.
So thank you all very much for coming, and we look forward to many more moments like this in our live events. If you'd like to carry on these conversations, come and meet with us. Next opportunity is next week at the summit, and you'll find plenty of time to chat and breakout rooms, meet new people, and let's make the changes that need to happen so that we can really birth the new humanity together, each one of us.
Yes. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and I hope you have something amazing to take away and come back and share with us, because we'd love to meet you in person.
See you soon, I hope.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
All the very
See you
best.
later.
Take care. Bye for
Bye.
now.